Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians. Welcome to the August 29th meeting of the Rotary Club of Louisville. I'm Lori Hudson-Flannery, Club President, and Paul Harris Fellow. This is your weekly reminder to please make sure your devices are silent or turned off before we get started. And I would like to invite to the podium Alice Bridges for our invocation today. Alice is principal at AOB Consulting, LLC, Director of Special Projects at Parks Alliance of Louisville, current club director, past club president for 2016-2017, and the reason I'm a member of this club, and I think we can all agree, one of the best darn presidents ever.
Absolutely.
And Paul Harris Fellow, times 6.
Thank you, President Lori. I thought for today's prayer, in honor of our distinguished speaker, whose organization is committed to lifelong learning, we'd have a prayer for curiosity. Lord, we know it requires work to ask questions. It requires effort to see a point of view from another. It requires humility to challenge our assumptions. It requires waiting to hear from you. Honestly, we lack the resources to change on our own. I pray for curiosity. Give us open minds and hearts. Release us from the cynicism that pervades our perspective. Move us from obstinance to pliability. We ask you to let us see what you see. May this become true for our others and ourselves. Creator, you motivate our curiosity. You make all things new. You give us faith, like children, to ask more questions than making statements. So today, make us curious, remind us of your power, move us from being static to dynamic, and let our curiosity see you in ways we've never seen you before.
Thank you, Alice. Now I would like to invite up Jacob McGill. Jacob's going to lead us into the pledge and the four-way test. He is a senior business advisor for the Byrne Insurance Group.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now the four-way test.
Is it true? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Okay, thank you, Jacob. Now it is time for the introduction of our guests. So Rotarians, if you do have a guest with you here today, if you'll make your way over to this microphone to my right, to your left, please introduce yourself first, then your guest, indicating any titles or affiliations that your guest has. And guests, when you hear your name, please respond by standing so the rest of the club can see who you are. Thank you.
President Lori, I'm Ken Grossman, Executive Image Custom Closures, and I'm honored to introduce my guest and proud to introduce my guest, Phil Grossman, who is my brother. And this kind of follows a theme. You might recall if you were here last week, I introduced 3 Ballard graduates. Well, I've recruited another Ballard graduate today, Ballard in 1973. And Phil also happened to graduate from Washington University a year ahead of our speaker in 1977, and is a graduate of the University of Louisville Law School. Practices law, he's a partner at Grossman Green.
Excellent. Welcome. And since we're all in oldest daughter also went to Ballard. She graduated in 2007.
President Maloney, I'm George Breakmeyer. I have my guest today, Cheryl Zimmerman, my sister, and she's on the board of trustees with UofL.
Welcome.
Hi, President Lori. Tanya Augustine with the School of Medicine here at University of Louisville, and today my guest is Jennifer Pardon with Rose Consulting Solutions, and she offers recruiting services for small to mid-sized businesses.
Welcome.
President Lori, I'm Claire Arnold. I'm Service Director for the Kentucky Manufacturing Extension Partnership here at UofL, and I have 3 guests with me today. I'm very proud to introduce 3 global Rotary scholars. Forrest Clevenger is going to be studying this coming year at the London School of Economics. Maddie Martinez is a nursing graduate, and she will pursue a degree in molecular mechanisms of human disease at the University of Cambridge. And then Zoa Mian. She is a 4th-year medical student at UofL and had taken a gap year to pursue a degree in eye health with the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. And she will be sharing her experiences with you shortly.
Madam President, fellow Rotarians, I would like to introduce my guests. I'm Heidi Potter. I'm Director of Corporate Engagement at the Speed Art Museum. I'd like to introduce my colleague, Stacy Gordon-Funk, who is the Chief of Advancement and my Executive Director, coming right down the sidewalk from the Speed Art Museum. We wish them a warm welcome. Oh, thank you. Here she is, Rafaela Plateau. Thank you.
Welcome. That's awesome. We've got some fabulous guests today. So thank you, Rotarians, for bringing these wonderful people in to have lunch and experience this with us. Guests, after I ring the bell to adjourn the meeting, if you will take about 5 minutes or so to go to the table in the corner, you'll see over here to my right, it's in the far corner, there's a placard on top that says, "What is Rotary?" There's a gentleman named Craig Sherman. Is Craig here yet? Well, he will be, I'm certain. So, oh, there he is, just in time delivery. Craig Sherman in the lovely jacket, and he will meet you over there just to give you a little bit of an overview of what Rotary is all about. We always have at least one Rotarian in the spotlight. This week is no different. We want to congratulate Chris Nation for being featured as one of Louisville Business first 20 people to know in advertising, PR, and marketing. So congratulations, Chris. Lots of leaders in this club. And then for some announcements for some of the upcoming things. And you know, I only mention a few of them every time because I could probably spend most of the hour up here talking about all the things that we have going on. We try to capture those in Sparks. So you can find the ones I'm talking about in Sparks, but you can also look at the top of Sparks and kind of see maybe a synopsis of things that are coming if you're interested. So I'd like to highlight the Social Activities Committee is going to invite you to a Rotary happy hour on Friday, September 6th. It's on the patio of Colonial Gardens, which you all know is right across the street from Iroquois Amphitheater. And there's a popular band that will be playing that night from 6 to 9. It's called the Checkmates. So if you're interested in that, I think that's enough information to show up. But if you need more information, look at Sparks. Or you can also contact the committee chair, Jeff Underhill. That committee is on a roll. They've also planned a Rotary Day at the volleyball court for Sunday, September 22nd at 12:30 in the afternoon. Come watch the UofL women's team take on the Nebraska Huskers. That's right. Can't wait to hear how it goes. Mentoring, of course, is a long-standing activity for this club. Mentoring for our Rotary Honors Scholars starts back up since school's back in session. Western High School will start on September 17th, and you all know these are monthly. And Iroquois High School starts on September 25th. See Committee Chair and Club Treasurer Craig Mooney if you would like to be a part of this important program. We have new dates that have been added if you want to volunteer with Imagination Library signups. You'll recall this is Dolly Parton's effort to get books into the hands of preschool children. One free book a month is actually delivered to the children's homes. And I don't know if you saw this week, but Dolly Parton was actually in Lexington And she was with our governor and celebrating the fact that all 120 counties of Kentucky now have this service, this important literacy service. Very proud to be a part of that, and if you're interested, please see Rick Harnett. Finally, please take a couple of minutes to give us some feedback on the communications that you receive from our club. I first announced this last week. We have 14 people of our 363 respond. So we have an incentive. If you will fill out the survey to help staff make sure that we're communicating with you in the best possible way, and you will be entered into a pot and you might win a free Thursday lunch. So please do that. Now I'd like to invite to the podium Claire Arnold, Director of Outreach and Partnerships, UofL Manufacturing Extension Partnership, and Chair of the District 6710 Global Grants Scholarship Committee, and also a club director.
Thank you so much, Madam President. I am really excited to share with you about the District 6710 Global Rotary Scholar Program. As you know, I have 3 guests with me. To give you a little background, the purpose of the scholarship program is to support exceptional students who are devoted to pursuing a career in an area of great humanitarian need that aligns with one of the Rotary's areas of focus. And these students demonstrate a personal, long-term commitment to measurable, sustainable change. This scholarship is offered on a competitive basis for 1 academic year of graduate level study at a university outside North America. This $50,000 scholarship is intended to help them with cost of travel, tuition, fees, room and board, and educational supplies. These scholarships are funded through district-designated funds and a matching Rotary Foundation global grant. I'd like to invite Zoa Mian, a 4th-year medical student, to come forward. She has just completed a year at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. As a medical student, she's been involved with public health initiatives and community outreach, and she was a guest speaker on fighting health inequity in medicine through a social justice lens. Please join me in welcoming Zoha.
Hi everyone, it is such an honor to be here and see all of you today. Thank you for making it out. I know it's been extremely hot this week, so I hope everyone's staying hydrated. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about my experiences abroad as a Rotary Global Scholar, just some background about me. I'm a 4th-year medical student at the University of Louisville School of Medicine. I was raised in Louisville. I've grown up here my entire life. I went to Cincinnati for undergrad and then came back for medical school. And it's been an amazing experience since. So just some introduction. I attended the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. This is a very old university in London that focuses mainly on public health. My master's was a master's in public health for eye care. So this is more of a niche and specific master's that focuses just on eye care instead of the broad master's of public health that most of us know. Essentially, this master's focuses on the epidemiology of eye care in the world, kind of the framework of eye disease currently, what has been done to eradicate blindness, and what work also needs to be done. These are just some of my wonderful classmates posing in front of the school. It was an incredible experience. We had speakers and doctors from all over the world. We had different classes that focused on different eye disease, communicable and non-communicable, and we had a number of workshops where we essentially practiced implementing a public health program in a low-middle income country. Next slide. So these are just some of my wonderful classmates, and I really want to highlight them because they inspire me greatly. A number of these people are clinicians. They have been working as ophthalmologists or optometrists or nurses for a very long time. Many of them took a pause in their career and came to London to pursue this master's. Many of these individuals are inspiring in their own right. One of my classmates eradicated trachoma, which is an eye disease from chlamydia in her village. Another one was the only glaucoma specialist in Nigeria for millions and millions of people. Some of these people left children behind so they could come and pursue this master's. So you can imagine that I learned so much from them, and I learned so much from the global health giants that taught us as well. And we got very close over the course of the year, and I miss them a lot, and I hope I can visit them. So some of the things that we did is we just kind of learned about how blindness and low vision is being dealt with. So we visited the Royal National Institute of Blindness, and essentially we had a day where we talked about low vision resources. So these are for people who may have vision or may not have vision, but essentially the people that are working at this institution are working to provide resources that can aid them in their vision. So these are just some of the things that we saw: magnifying glasses, canes, just some things that even I didn't know existed, and how low vision is such a spectrum from what we think we know. It can involve, glare and the sunlight not being able to make you see. It can be not being able to see certain colors or being able to see shading. So these are just some of the things that we have. And interestingly enough, there's not particularly a low vision clinic in Louisville. There is in Lexington. So I think when you're going abroad and talking about resources that may not be available in other countries, it's also important to reflect on what we may be able to do better in our own communities as well. Another really cool thing that we did is we visited some diabetic retinopathy screening centers. So as you may know, the UK has a bit of a different healthcare system. They have a public healthcare system. They have the NHS. And through the NHS, all British citizens can get free diabetic retinopathy screenings yearly. Here in America, you have to make an appointment with an ophthalmologist, which can be tricky if you don't have enough ophthalmologists in your city or in your region, which can lead to long wait times if you don't have a certain kind of insurance. But this program is really cool because anyone can go, and they have different centers set up throughout different neighborhoods in London. So you can just make an appointment, they take pictures of your retina, and then optometrists and ophthalmologists view it, and then they can refer you to a physician if things get worse. Another cool thing we did is just learn different ways of detecting diseases. So a lot of this master's was focused on increasing eye resources in low middle income countries and low resource communities. So one of my classmates, actually for her dissertation, came up with this workshop to look at the optic nerve in the back of the eye to detect glaucoma. So we had a little workshop to use this handheld device to see, if we could actually find it. It was very difficult. It'll definitely take a lot more practice for me, but I just thought it was really cool what some of my classmates were doing. And then through the London School, I was also able to do some other really cool opportunities. There was a Doctors Without Borders, MSF conference that I was able to attend with my classmates, where we just talked about different global health efforts around the world. And then I was also a student liaison in the Health Humanitarian Crisis Center. And I assisted with a number of different talks, such as the politics of aid, how much aid gets to different countries and how that's influenced, the future of artificial intelligence and humanitarian assistance. And I was also able to write a blog post about eye injury in war and conflict zones. And then just some other fun things. Obviously, as an American, I had to introduce Thanksgiving and all the wonderful food and hospitality that comes with Friendsgiving. So we had a big Friendsgiving, and I was able to invite all of my classmates and classmates from other master's program, and we had a big potluck, and they were kind of able to understand the coziness and being with friends and family around Thanksgiving, which was really nice because I didn't go back home. And then just to talk a little bit about my Rotary experience there. So my host club there was the Rotary Club of Streatham in London. They were in South London. This is me and my fellow Rotarians, or Rotary Global Grant Scholars in London. A lot of them were doing some really amazing things at different universities around London. So it was really cool to meet them and kind of get to know one another. And then I was also able to attend the regional conference that they had there, which was in Eastbourne. I was able to go there with my Rotary Club. It was just 3 days of getting to know their Rotarians on the other side of the pond, talking about some of the initiatives that they had, and just overall have a good time and talk to one another. And my Rotary Club also did a lot of amazing outreach in their community. This was just one of the things that they did. They had a fundraiser for the Streatham Youth Club, which is an organization in South London that just works and mentors young individuals in the community, kind of helps them with school, getting involved, volunteering, just, trying to keep them on the right path, keep them out of trouble, offering mentorship and guidance. So this was really nice. And they also had an 100th anniversary there, which was also really cool. And we got these really awesome tote bags. So I just wanted to talk a bit more about my dissertation. So my dissertation was really unique in that I was able to leave the country again, and I actually went to Tanzania. I went to Moshi, Tanzania, and I worked at the Kilimanjaro Christian Medical Center, which is a little hospital in Moshi right next to Mount Kilimanjaro. So it was really amazing. When you were walking to the hospital, you could just see Mount Kilimanjaro in the distance. If, she wasn't shy that day and the clouds weren't present. So essentially my project focused on determining the quality of life of individuals who are blind in one eye from fungal keratitis. It's essentially a cornea infection, and the fungal component is more prevalent in tropical countries. Unfortunately, a lot of these countries are also low middle income countries, and they don't have the resources to adequately treat this. They don't have the medications available, and in Tanzania, there is no corneal transplant program. If they do get corneal transplants, usually it's from abroad, but as you imagine, that's not very sustainable. So these are just some more pictures. They had a pretty fleshed out ophthalmology program. They were able to do diabetic retinopathy screenings, laser. They had a number of different surgeries. They had a pediatric ophthalmologist. They had a glaucoma specialist, oculoplastics, but there was obviously still a lot of work that needs to be done. They don't have a cornea fellowship. They don't have a corneal transplant system. They don't have eye banking in the country. So going forward, that's kind of where my goals lie. I would like to continue working with this institution and kind of use the research evidence to leverage advocating to build these institutions in the country. So I just want to thank the Rotary Club of Louisville for their sponsorship, in particular Claire Arnold and Richard Miller for their support. I want to thank the Rotary Club of Streatham in London for their hospitality, and the University School of Medicine for their continued support. Thank you.
Pretty impressive, thank you. Thank you, Claire, and thank you, Zoha, for being here and sharing your story with us today. Kim Schatzel, PhD, began her service as the 19th president of the University of Louisville in February of 2023. During her presidency, the university received the largest state appropriation ever in its 226-year history, and has seen an investment of over $450 million in capital projects, including the investment of over $450 million including the investment in construction of a state-of-the-art building to support the growth of the Speed School of Engineering and a new 300,000 square foot health sciences simulation center and collaboration hub. Dr. Schatzel previously served as president of Towson University, as interim president, provost, and executive vice president of academic and student affairs at Eastern Michigan University, and as dean of the University of Michigan Dearborn College of Business. Dr. Schatzel spent more than 20 years in the private sector and is one of only 2% of university presidents nationwide with extensive corporate and entrepreneurial C-suite experience. She holds a PhD in business administration from Michigan State University and a bachelor's degree from Washington University in St. Louis. As chair of UofL's Health, Board of Directors, Dr. Schatzel fosters collaboration between the university and one of the premier academic health systems in the entire country. She also serves on the boards of the Atlantic Coast Conference, Greater Louisville, Inc., and is a member of the President's Alliance on Higher Education and Immigration. She's also on the President's Trust of the American Association of Colleges and Universities. So you're not too far from home, but welcome, Dr. Schatzel.
Good afternoon, everyone. I have to tell you, following Zoha, this is going to be tough. When she said, "Oh yeah," so when I sat down, I said to her, "You did that all in a year? To be able to do that?" So it's remarkable. It's one of the blessings that I have is to be around remarkable students like this. Can we give them another round of applause? My title here is to talk about why UofL matters to Louisville and Kentucky, but I want to spend a moment just to talk about my own leadership journey. I take the opportunity to always talk about leadership, and yesterday, if some of you have been there, you were at Louisville Leadership where we saw Mark Pope and Pat Kelsey on the stage with the mayor to talk about leadership, and it was quite the enjoyable event. And if you didn't attend, I will point out the fact that Mark Pope is probably about 6'11", and Pat Kelsey's about as tall as I am. So to have them juxtaposed on the stage together was a very interesting start, particularly when Pat said that, you know, people often mistake us because we're both physically imposing. But that's Pat to be able to do that. I started, as was said, I grew up in New York City. I'm a first-generation college student. Neither of my parents went to college. My mother, in fact, never graduated high school. When she was 12 years old in 1929, the eldest of 6 children, my grandfather went out one day and never came back and left my mother, my grandmother, with 6 children to be able to raise. So my mother dropped out of school at the age of 12 to clean houses with my grandmother to be able to support the family. So in my household, education was everything. And I'll talk a little bit more about why it should continue to be that today, because it's a transformative opportunity for people to take advantage of. But as I was growing up, if I ever talked about not wanting to go to college, my father gave me a big talking to, and so did my mother. I went to Washington University. I actually had never been west of Pennsylvania and never been on a plane. When I got a call from Washington University, and Philip and I were talking that we both went there. I came from New York. I did really well on my math SAT, and they were looking for women in the engineering school. So they called one day. This is the days when you had the phone in the kitchen, okay, and you lift it up, stuff like that. And so I answered the phone, and it was Washington University who said that they would give me a full ride scholarship to go to WashU, room and board, as well as full tuition. And when I told my dad said, "You're going to love Washington University." and I did. But I had never been west of Pennsylvania, and I always share the fact I sounded like Rhoda. Do you ever remember Rhoda? I had this really heavy New York accent when I landed in Missouri, and had to kind of figure that out as well. But got a great education, graduated and joined Ford Motor Company in 1978 as a management trainee. And my first job was a second shift trim foreman, making Pintos for Ford Motor Company in their Metuchen assembly plant. And yeah, it ages me again, right? Phones, Pintos, you know, where else can I go? Rhoda. And I was a foreman because they didn't have gender neutral titles back then. Now they call them production supervisors, but I was a foreman. My first boss told me that it was unnatural for me to have the job, and told me the fact that I was taking a job from a man who needed it to support his family. 5 years later, he worked for me. So be careful what you say, right? From there, I worked for Ford, and then I actually went to a company called Borg Warner, got involved with M&A work. And this was in the mid-'80s where the automotive industry was divesting of non-core businesses. And it had an opportunity to purchase a company from Chrysler Corporation, got venture capital, purchased a company from Chrysler, added 2 other companies. One of them was actually in Salem, Indiana, and formed a company that was the largest powdered metal company in the United States, the 2nd largest in the world. Powdered metal is a competitor for castings and forgings. So you can tell I was a shop rat. I mean, I'm a production supervisor. I was a manufacturing engineer, design engineer, spent my life in factories. There's 28 pounds of powdered metal in every car. So I served as the CEO of the company. We had locations on 4 continents. I served for about 5 years and sold the company to a Swiss company, and then decided what I was going to do next. And I always say that if the voice was on back then, who knows what I would be doing today? But it wasn't. So I woke up and decided to go get my PhD. So I always talk to people about repotting yourself. And again, you hear about this higher ed coming in here and how it provides for transformational pathways. Got my PhD at the age of 42. Started as a faculty member. That was a time when higher ed was actually changing its model. 80% of the funding used to come from the state, 20% from tuition. Right around 2000, that model completely switched. So someone that had business experience, understood what a balance sheet was, understood what cash flow statements were, things of that nature, suddenly my skill sets became more valued because of the fact that we had to be conscious of the business model. So I was a business school dean, I was a provost, and then was the president at Towson University for 7 years. So I'm in my 9th year as a president, and 18 months ago I was blessed to be able to come to the University of Louisville. And it's been truly, just a truly remarkable experience to be here. It's an incredible institution, an incredible city. And my husband, Trevor, and I, who is English, by the way, he's a dual citizen, but he's English. I've just been so warmly embraced by the city and by the community that we feel really, really at home. And stability has been a big question in terms of this institution. So I always like to say, you're all stuck with me, okay? So just realize the fact you're stuck with me. And it's because the things that we want to accomplish will take time to be able to do. You don't turn an institution towards the direction and trajectory that it can achieve overnight. Where between UofL, University of Louisville Health, and the University of Louisville, you combine the two, it's almost $5 billion in revenue. One of the largest employers in the city and one of the largest employers in the state, and just has tremendous impact in terms of both Louisville as well as the Commonwealth. So it's something that I'm just blessed to be a part of and blessed to be able to be in this leadership position. 2 weeks ago is when we welcomed the freshmen back we welcomed the students back to campus. My favorite day of the year, actually even more than commencement, okay, is move-in. I love both of them, but if I was gonna give a little bit of a gain, actually move-in it really touches me more because it's kind of more up close and personal. There's nothing more exciting than having parents and families bringing their loved ones, their daughter or their son, it could be their nephew or their niece, to school, to be able to move them into the residence halls. My husband and I take the opportunity to spend time at all the residence halls welcoming the families. And I always ask, is this your oldest? Is this your youngest? And the most touching response is when a mom says, it's my only. And then I have the opportunity to say, I promise we'll take very good care of them. But it reminds you what higher ed and going to college is all about, to see the joy on the students' faces and the parents' faces, to know the fact that their child is on a path to be able to achieve a dream that they have. And we have about 38% of our students are first generation. So they're the first in their family to go to college and to be able to set that trajectory for their family members. Something is, that those are numbers, but we also had a situation where one of my team found a student that was actually over by the planetarium and there was no reason to be there. walked up and asked if they could be of any help to him, and it turned out it was a foster student, had aged out of foster care. So this young man was walking to find out where he should come on campus. He had taken an Uber to get here all by himself. He had a roller bag with him and 2 bags, everything that he owned, and had come to our campus to be able to get a college degree. And if you don't think that we got our arms wrapped around him to make sure that he's okay, I gotta tell you we do. And he's not the only one that has that journey. There are dozens and dozens of students on our campus who are viewing higher education as something that if they achieve it, it is transformative and life-changing for them. So it's important that we recognize that, and it is absolutely what we consider to be a noble and something that we commit ourselves to be able to do. So just remember what is happening on this campus and what happens on university campuses across the United States. Lives are being changed. Dreams are being fulfilled. Largest class in the history of the University of Louisville. We just had in this one. Largest freshman class that we've ever had as well. Also, so it's, and this really pulls against a lot of what you've probably read about enrollment on universities around the United States. So we're bucking the trend at the University of Louisville. So it's our largest total enrollment, our largest freshman class. A real key number 2 is the fact we've had the highest retention rate. That's first year to second year in our history as well. So 3 historic numbers that we're very, very, very proud of. What's also important for me to share with you is the fact that we have 2,300 students that are military connected. They're either veterans, active duty, or a family member associated with the military. So about 2,300 students. That number's increased by about 30% over the last 5 years. Well, we were just earned the military-friendly gold designation this past year, and we're one of only 12 R1s, which means the highest research status in the nation to be able to receive that. And it's something that we're really, really proud of. Shared the fact that we received the largest state appropriation in our history. I love saying history. It's such a good word, isn't it? Historic. We received the largest appropriation in our history from the legislature this last spring. Just over in total $500 million. And that's a B, if anybody missed that. And that includes the fact that we received about $300 million to be able to build a new health sciences building down on our health sciences campus downtown. And is sorely needed to be able to address specifically nursing shortages in our state. There's about 6,000 spots open for nurses in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. This building will allow us to be able to double our enrollment, to increase our enrollment by 50% in terms of nursing and respond to that need. So, and in addition, you've probably seen the speed school if you drove down Eastern Parkway, which is going up. That's about a $100 million building. So we're blessed to be able to have the support of the legislature, the leadership there, both President Stivers as well as Speaker Osborne, and of course Governor Beshear. And as yesterday I was at UofL Health, where we had the topping off ceremony. We take this big beam and put it on top of the building. And I was there with the mayor, and I was there with the governor, I was there with Speaker Osborne, Tom Miller, the CEO there, and a variety of others. And part of my speech, I said that cranes warm the hearts of university presidents, as they do CEOs of health systems, mayors, and governors. And the reason is, it is a signal of progress. Seeing these cranes on our campus, it's a signal of progress, it's a signal of the confidence that the legislature has in this university. It's a signal of the fact of the future that we are creating, the very bright future we are creating for this university, and the fact that it's realized the impact that this university has, not just in Louisville, but across the whole Commonwealth of Kentucky. And we've been very focused on doing that in the last 18 months. There was a tendency, and I have to tell you, that people really saw the University of Louisville, as I traveled around, as only being Louisville-centric. We're large. We have a lot to be able to do with our partners in the state. We have dental clinics that are in Clay County. We have medical residence and training programs in nursing schools in Owensboro and out by Paducah. We're talking to Murray State right now to possibly expand the medical school to Murray State. We're talking to Northern Kentucky University about the possibility of expanding our engineering school. So I always say there's the tyranny of the or, which is Louisville or Kentucky, but then there's the harmony of the and. It's Louisville and Kentucky that we want to be able to focus on. And I can tell you that we've been warmly received with these types of conversations across the Commonwealth to be able to do that. So it's really our pleasure to do it. I want to give you a couple of other numbers just because I'm very interested in numbers when we do that, is the fact that this last week you might have seen the fact that if you haven't, Green Heart Project. I don't know if anybody saw it on the Today Show. Yes? Okay. So if those that didn't clap, you have homework. Okay, I'll turn into my faculty mode right now. Okay, is Google, just go on Google Green Heart Project Louisville. When it pops up, Today's Show, just watch or read about what's there. The Green Heart Project is a National Institute of Health project that was funded by the National Institute of Health. And it was a longitudinal study, which is a fancy way to say that it was conducted over 6 years, where it was studying the effect of the environment, specifically trees, on cardiovascular health as well as cancer. And what the study did was we had 746 families that participated starting in 2018, where blood tests, tissue samples, urine samples were taken. They volunteered to participate. We took a baseline study of them to be able to take a look at a biomarker that actually examines inflammation in the body. And inflammation in the body is a determinant of being able to assess risk with cardiovascular disease as well as other cancers. So the more you have of that biomarker, that's not good. Okay? It's like golf. The higher the score, the worse it is. We then planted 8,000 trees in a South Louisville neighborhood to be able to do this. 8,000 trees to go in, and took samples over those 6 years to see where we are. We just released the results. There is no study that has been done like this at all. And what it showed is the fact that there was a 20% reduction in the biomarker of inflammation in those areas where the trees were planted. So what it proves is trees are medicine. Trees are medicine. And changes the way we will look at the design of cities and take a look at how we deal with health rather than illness. So it's rather than treating an illness, we could be influencing outcomes in terms of health factors associated with it. We've already gotten calls from around the world as the results were issued. So please take a look at this. This is part of our Christina Lee Brown Environment Institute, and a really important part of our university. The Environment is the largest institute at the University of Louisville in terms of research. It's about $66 million in funding and over 100 researchers. This is a key part of what they were able to provide. So we're really excited to be able to do that. The last thing I want to talk about is that we also have gotten from the legislature about $1.5 million to establish an immigration law clinic. And this is actually President Stivers got involved with this. For those of you that don't know, Louisville is the second largest location of Cuban refugees in the United States outside of Miami. I got some people shaking their heads and some people going, I didn't know that. There's about 10,000 Cubans that come here every year. And we're seeing that increase. Now, for those of you that are unfamiliar with this, I learned this myself just in the last few months, is because of the Bay of Pigs in 1966, Cubans were given a special route to citizenship as refugees. So when they come here, a year and a day later, they can apply for citizenship as refugee status and move forward. But they have to fill out the paperwork, and there has to be support in terms of being able to do that. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of immigration lawyers. There's shortages nationally, particularly here. So the legislature provided $1.5 million for us to be able to establish an immigration law clinic, to be able to support these individuals and their families towards a path of citizenship. So it's, again, something that is important for us from community engagement. So I said we're doing research, as we talked about, leaders in research, over $230 million in research in R1, but I also talked about community engagement. The Immigration Law Clinic, though we have over 300 partnerships within the community that we work very, very closely with to be able to reach out, to be able to support the efforts of community partners. We are one of less than 70 universities in the United States that have an R1 status and a community engagement status. Less than 70 that have that. That was one of the reasons why, when I had the opportunity to come here, I jumped at it. I came for the interview, came back, and told my husband, pack the bags, I hope I get this job. Because the impact that we have as an anchor institution is just remarkable for the city as well as for the Commonwealth itself. So, you know, where we have more to go, but I'm blessed with a great team. I'm blessed with folks like you and partnerships that we have to do that. But I want to ask for some help. I need you to help me on two things. One is the fact that higher ed is getting a bad rap nationally. You kind of sense that? I talked about what higher education has meant for me in terms of my family being first generation, and I wouldn't be standing here today if I didn't have a college degree and that kind of support. But unfortunately, we're having people be discouraged from achieving a college education. Well, I can tell you this. One is the fact that a college degree, you'll earn $1.5 million more in your life than if you graduated from high school. You live longer. You divorce less. You vote more. Unemployment rate for those with high school education averages 8%. College education, less than 2.3%. The return is there. 50% of our students graduate with no debt. The other 50% with $24,000 worth of debt. I would say the return is pretty good with the numbers that I gave. So what I would ask you to do at every opportunity, please share that information. Please share the fact that a college education has great meaning. I also always say the fact that I think it's an issue of national defense, that we need to be able to have folks with college degrees, knowledge workers creating knowledge, as we say. I really don't think the Chinese or the Koreans are walking around saying, you know, we got too many college graduates here. Do you think so? I don't think they're saying that. So for us to be able to continue our leadership globally, the United States needs to continue its commitment to higher education. So help me share that message. The other message that I want you to help me with is STEM. Science, technology, engineering degrees. I can't tell you how many kids we talk to that we start talking about, have you thought about majoring in computer science or engineering? And they go, oh, that's really hard. That's too hard. That's like rock. You gotta be a rocket scientist to be able to do that. Until we normalize those degrees, until those degrees become like being a marketing major, being an education major, being a political science major, we're going to keep having these shortages of engineers, computer scientists, healthcare workers across the board. Until we have 8, 9, and 10-year-olds be thinking of STEM degrees as everybody gets them, we're never going to be able to address the shortages that we have right now. They will just continue. I talked to the mayor about this maybe about a year ago. One of his sons goes to Brown. 2 of his sons at the time, one was there, but now he's got 2 in Brown. And he said, you know, I was talking to my son the other day who goes to Brown, and I mentioned the fact, because he's a freshman, and he's thinking about what he wants to major in. And I told him, why don't you take a look at computer science? And his son said, this is the mayor's son who goes to Brown, said, boy, that, you know, I think that's going to be too hard. You know, maybe I'll be pre-med, I'll be a doctor. So help me with that too. Help me with the fact that we can talk to young people when they're considering careers to realize the fact, to explore the STEM education and those degree programs so that we can have those as being normalized in terms of career choices, because we desperately need to be able to do that. So with that, in closing, I just want to say, you know, as I always say, it is a great day to be a University of Louisville Cardinal, and I just so appreciate being invited to share all this great news with all of you today. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Schatzel. If you'll stay where you are, this will be the time, if you still have time, that we will allow Rotarians. The Rotarians have the privilege of asking our speakers questions, so if you'll line up behind me to do that. I just wanted to say, last week our speaker was Deputy Mayor Pat Malloy, and I think you were the only person he mentioned by name in his talk, and just talking about what a wonderful community leader you are and how important the relationship between the city and the university is, the town and the gown, right? So I think it was perfectly appropriate that you'd be the very next person. So thank you very much for sharing your time with us.
Pat and I are buddies.
Hello, Dr. Chapman. Neville Blakemore. I've got a pretty unique position in that I currently serve on the board of the President's Council. And I used to serve on the JCTC area over there, foundation board. And in research, I found very extensive, really close relationship with Valencia and the University of Southern California, Central Florida. They share buildings, they share programs, they share logos. I mean, it's really, really, really integrated. Is that a model that maybe could exist for Louisville and for Jefferson?
That's a great question. So Ty Handy and I are good pals. One of the first things I did when I came here was to be able to get to meet with him. We are the largest transfer destination as an institution in all of Kentucky. So 1 out of 4 students that transfer to the University of Louisville. And it's a pathway that we're very, very proud of. You know, where they're located right now in terms of the building that's going up, in terms of their science complex, actually we have a letter of support. We're doing an MOU with them that when this simulation hub is brought up, that they're going to be able to have their students make use of it too. So, you know, yes, 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 yes is all I can say in terms of the response to that.
Dr. Schatzel, Ashley Brower. I am an MBA grad and also the speaker chair, so thank you so much for being here tonight. I was at Fort Campbell last week for Leadership Kentucky, and I was struck by the colonel told us that these 18-year-old kids that are coming in, they can't teach them to fly helicopters yet because they have to teach them to drive. This is the first time they're interacting in real life in the same room with somebody of the opposite sex, and how do you interact with them, what is consent, all of those things, they are starting way before they used to when they get the next group of folks in. And I just wonder, how does that relate here? What are you doing with the freshman class to help them where they don't have the same experience, especially through the pandemic, as I think we all had growing up. And so how does that change? What do you do to sort of wrap your arms around them and help them be successful?
That's a great question. So I'm really, the pandemic is still impacting, and I think it will continue to impact for generations. I always say the fact that when the last dissertation is written is when the impact of the pandemic will be done. And that will not happen for decades and decades. So we're just seeing what that impact is, and we're seeing it in our students as they're coming in. I also think social media is a whole other issue that we have to deal with as well. So in answer to your question, we are blessed with having a fantastic student affairs group on this campus. So the focus that we have is one, a great degree of programming that we have to be able to orient the students to the campus itself. But one of the things that I also talk about is the fact that you need high-touch programs, just as you're saying, that we reach out and embrace the students to be able to know that, and this campus is very good at this. If somebody's walking down a hall at some campuses, they look a little lost, people won't stop. This campus is not that way. If somebody's walking down a hall and looks a little lost, people will stop and say, what can I do to help you? And they will walk them to that help. So it's a constant effort that we had. Last year, we put in a 24/7 telehealth with regard to mental health, so that students could access and be able to do that, and they would be triaged to be able to manage it. So it's something that we recognize that the world has changed and our students have changed, and we need to meet them where they are. And I think that's important to realize too. We had a gentleman by the name of Jeff Rotary in Canada who came to speak yesterday, who's actually the president of Harlem Childhood Network in terms of the work that they do there. And he said, what's interesting is if you're in law, every case is different. A lawyer's not going to listen to all of us and write one brief in terms of how they were going to handle the legal case. But somehow in education, we think we could just duplicate across and not make individualized programs for students. So we're increasingly recognizing the fact that we have a variety of demographics, identities, value systems, belief structures, life experiences on the campus, and that we need to work to embrace all our students to be successful.
Excellent presentation, actually. You gave a talk, I think it was November of 2022, before you even started, about health, the things that were important to Louisville. One of them was health equity. You really pressured the importance of that and the things that need to be done. I just mentioned that yesterday to Rotary Vernon Foster over there. He said you've been doing a tremendous amount, and they have a lot of passion in that area now. So you can mention a little bit about health equity and how you see it in the future.
So as we talked about health equity, we have the Traeger Institute that is in that space. We also just got about, I think it's a $5 million grant from the Humana Foundation to be able to pursue our efforts and our research in health equity. I mentioned the fact of being able to be in providing various support services in terms of dental and medical in various areas. Accessibility is key. I mean, it's absolutely key to be able to do that. We have great partnerships with UofL Health to be able to explore that, as well as to be able to provide the fact that we want to address that. It shouldn't be what zip code you live in gives you access to health care. And unfortunately, we're faced with that often. So we are very, very intentional and very determined to be able to break those barriers down and make sure that we can provide health care to every citizen within the Commonwealth itself. And we have great partners to do that.
Hi, Dr. Schatzel, Walt Kuhn over here. A couple of things. First, you have a rock star in Jenny Sawyer. She gives, we have all these Rotary Honor Scholars that go to UofL, and she gives them her cell phone, and she keeps up with them. She is a rock star. Second, another comment is you can never take away the gift of a good education. And then I've got two questions. The first is, what's a question which somebody asked that they never do? That's one. Then the other is there some time, Tom Jurich and Jim Ramsey changed the literal landscape of Louisville, and they don't get any credit for it. And can we honor them sometime soon? So anyway.
Thank you for sharing. So, and I appreciate the fact that I stand on the shoulders of giants, both in terms of the campus itself, as well as in athletics. So I firmly believe that we need to be able to do that. But one of the things that I have to tell you, when I came to the campus was also struggling with instability, struggling with the fact that there had, stubbed its toe in various ways to be able to do it. So we worked really hard in the last 18 months to build pride back into our organization, to build in our organization determination to be able to really, really make a difference. So we're very, very future oriented, and I focused on that. I have a saying that the reason that a windshield is bigger than a rear view mirror is you should be looking to the future more.
Cliff Elgin, I read several years ago that on average the U.S. turns out about 100,000 engineers per year. India turns out about 1 million engineers per year. Are there any incentives to give students to enter into the STEM program?
That's a great. I'll give you the $5 later, just reinforcing my message. I appreciate it. One of the areas that we're working on, and that's really expanded, is pathways going into middle school and even into elementary school. Because to really get these careers, on people's, on their radar, is you need to be able to start there. We have a maker's space that's over on the other side of campus, where we actually bring boot camps at summer camps of students from elementary and middle school in, and it's robotics. So they really don't, they're having a fun time and really don't realize that they're being exposed to engineering. But at the end of it, they realize they can be an engineer and do this as well. So the more we're expanding those types of programs in terms of those pathways. But you really need to reach in to the elementary and to the middle schools to be able to do that. But it's a great question.
Hi, I'm Bob Nesmith. In the past 10 days, we've seen corporations cancel their DEI efforts. The University of Kentucky changed theirs, and there's a biting editorial op-ed in the Career Journal of one of your faculty members. I'm curious what's going to happen to the university's DEI office.
So thank you for that question. I can share with you that last year, some of you might be aware of this, there were two bills within the legislature. One was in the House and one was in the Senate with regard to DEI. They were very, very different. I spent a lot of time in the legislature talking to legislative leaders about DEI. One of the things that when I talked with them, I said, we have military veterans, and we have a Center for Military Connected Families on the campus. Is that DEI? We have a Center for Accessibility and Disability Services on the campus. Is that DEI? We have work for Pell-eligible students. We just hired some financial aid counselors to work specifically with our Pell-eligible students. Is that DEI? What about rural students and online students that we work with? Is that DEI? It was very, very constructive conversations because of the fact that if you take a look at DEI, and I think the word or the initials have they've gotten a bad, it's like higher ed's gotten a bad break. I think DEI has gotten a bad break, but when you look at it and what it really means and what it means to this campus is it means all students. That we want to support all students to be successful, and that each and every one of them, inclusive of all identities, ideologies, and demographics, are supported to thrive and reach their fullest potential. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, again.
President Schatzel, thank you so much. That was fantastic. We're glad you're here. I was reminded when I was sitting at the table briefly in this meeting, looking at Jacob McGill again, who did our pledge and our four-way test, that he's a new member. And how do I know he's a new member? Well, I know anyway. But how does everybody else in the room know he's a new member? He has a little blue ribbon under his name tag. And that is something that the membership group talked about doing so that you know who the new members are, so that you who are not new members can try to touch 2 or 3 of them in every meeting and just say hello and introduce yourself and make them feel welcome. So we'll probably mention that a couple more times because there's some people who aren't here this week because it is kind of a holiday week. Speaking of that, next week, which will be September 5th on Thursday, our speaker will be Josh Hurd, Athletic Director at the University of Louisville. You're supposed to RSVP by Monday, September 2nd at noon. Of course, that is a holiday. You can still do that. But if you're going to be at the lake or the beach or in the mountains, you might want to go ahead and either do the QR code or consider doing so before you take off for the holiday weekend. I will not be here next week because Rotary is sending the president to the Glide trip. And if you know what Glide is, it's the annual trek, I would say, from GLI, our Chamber of Commerce, pulls together community leaders from all sectors around the city and goes to a different city each year. They've been to Jacksonville recently, they've been to Boston. This year they're going to San Antonio. So I will report back on that when I get back. But In my absence, our president-elect, the wonderful Ken Salvaggi, will be the person who is leading the meeting. Guests, I want to remind you again to touch base with Craig Sherman in this What is Rotary table for just a few minutes before you leave.